Best Live Act.
It's the Manic Street Preachers.
Yeah. The winners of the best group, all the way from Wales, are Manic Street Preachers.
Best new band.
Super Furry Animal.
And the winner is Manic Street Preachers.
Wales, who'd have thought it, riding on the crest of a tidal wave of praise after all those years. Fueled by the trailblazing Manic Street Preachers, a wealth of talent has suddenly exploded into the nation's consciousness. Where did it come from? When I was growing up in Cardiff, it was all lycra-clad tribute bands and rock covers. Any notion of credibility seemed a million light years away. Nicky Wire of the Manic Street Preachers.
They were some of the worst bands ever from Cardiff, like Banana Cat. There was this era of everyone would wear a yellow pair of jeans and have a saxophone in their group or something like that. You know, the most terrible, terrible things. And, you know, that's why I like Super Furries, because they remind me of the Mondays in the sense of just got that natural coolness. You know, they just chuck something on and they look good. Don't have to work at it. Better than being compared to, you know, The Alarm with Tom Jones. It gives you a lot of Welsh bands might moan, they say, oh, we're nothing like the Manics or whatever, but it's better than what we had to go through. I mean, James is going through a massive Badfinger period at the moment anyway, he just can't stop playing them. But, you know, it's not something that's recognisably cool, if you know what I mean.
To be young, creative and Welsh has never been a passport to opportunity. Even so, many turn to music and stick with it. But before the industry discovered the M4, bands desperate for recognition had to move to London.
Most Welsh people do piss off, don't they? You know, all the most famous ones, from Richard Burton to Hopkins, you know, to Tom, to Shirley, they all go, you know, and that is because I personally think it's because, you know, we're a split society between North and South Wales, where the language is divided, and, you know, it's just as much barriers there as there are between, you know, us and England, really. And, you know, I just think that's why we've always had such a problem with national identity.
Before it had even begun.
Yeah, I think that's true, you know, I think, not in a sense that it was from Wales, but just it was a place where we were born and we were determined to escape that particular place. You know, we were always a multinational band, you know, from right from the start. It was all about selling yourself to as big an audience as you could. So it was just escaping from our little town, you know, getting away from it as far as we could. And, you know, at the time, you can't deny that basically you know, we were always compared to The Alarm anyway, because they were the only Welsh band to compare you to. So it wasn't the easiest thing in the world, you know, and all the enemy headlines would be like Meek, Leak, or You Sexy Mertha effers and stuff like that, you know, which doesn't really have any relevance, so I had to get away from it. I don't think we were arrogant, we were just totally convinced of our own, you know, desire to be a big band. But it just, you know, you do come up against a kind of insidious racism that perhaps like the Irish had in the 70s, a kind of potato factor, you know, it was the daffodil factor with us. You know, when it would either be Tom Jones, Shirley Bassey, blah, 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 and, you know, it was there. We didn't really realise it until we got to London, you know, that most people in London especially think that Wales is a country that doesn't exist. To be honest with you, we only ever did 2 gigs really in Wales anyway. You know, we realised from the start we just didn't want to be going down James's Memory, work behind the bar in Newbridge. You know, there's one thing we had to do was not get in the circuit. We were hated in Newport. The Newport scene despised us. You know, they probably still do. Because, you know, we were the anti-Seattle band.
That attitude sits awkwardly with a new generation of bands who, while they may not embrace their culture wholeheartedly, a fact that's appreciated by all who have followed in their footsteps and journalists alike. John Harris, editor of Select.
Well, I think Manic Street Preachers are of crucial importance to all this because of the fact that the press loved them so much. It wasn't just a casual liking, you know. New Musical Express held them to their bosom as the champions of everything great. And the fact that they were Welsh as well, I think, made life quite difficult for those people. Because they were such a great band, obviously, but they were also tied to this country that prior to them, within the music papers, had just been the butt of a lot of people's jokes. So I think it was quite hard for those people. I think they found it quite upsetting to have to address the fact that a Welsh band were very, very good. And you can see that reflected in all the captions and headlines and jokes that ran through that initial spate of Manic Street Preachers coverage. It takes an advance of millions to hold us, Bach. The Manics come Rhondda. I there are loads of those, and they're the two that spring to mind. And it wasn't until about a year and a half, 2 years into the Manics' career that the Welsh jokes stopped. And I think that was purely because they'd exhausted all the jokes. Had there been more jokes, they would have carried on.
The Manics have been a very big influence, I think, in terms of their attitude and their politics. Just the way they carried themselves, and I'm sure they've got a lot to do with why people are willing to look at Wales, and credibly, in a way they cleared the way because they got called sheep shockers and they got called every sort of Welsh cliche. So by the time other bands like us, for instance, came along, we were able to say it was an old joke, you know, and we could say, right, we don't want any sheep in our titles, and no taff and no boyo, and we always make that clear to journalists, and sometimes they forget, but we haven't had a quarter of the shit the Manics got, really, you know. So I suppose they've been a lot of those ships that go around clearing mines and stuff, you know, so that other ships can come through, you know. Yeah, they're like a minesweeper.
Griff Rhys of Super Furry Animals. Andrea Parker of Melis.
I don't think the Manics actually helped Wales get back on the map, though, because in the beginning, there were a lot of interviews they slagged off being Welsh in the first place. But, I'm glad that things have changed so much, that Castonia came through and all the rest of things. But I think that, yeah, it was decent, good bands that they could not afford to ignore anymore. People were really listening to the Manics and Castonia and Super Furries.
What an amazing thing to have done, really. To parachute into the middle of British music when it was at its absolute nadir in 1992. When it was all shoegazing or, faceless techno music, and proved there was still mileage in being a rock group. That's the first thing, and then secondly what they've done in Wales on two fronts. What an amazing group.
They've done brilliant songs, and they've, held together and did everything, and it's fantastic.
With a #1 album and a clutch of awards voted by critics and the public alike, the Manics are now synonymous with success. But most people aren't aware of the struggle they faced to get the recognition they deserved.
But we'd had to dress up, we were the first to try and kind of change things and all the rest of it. So it's never been natural for us, We've always had to work at everything we could.
I think we're going to be a lot more considerate than the record companies are.
Simon Williams of The NME.
I think that's my main worry, because they're a lot more transient, they're a lot more into kind of like, let's make money out of this right now. And you can see the way that some of the fans are being dealt with. They've been on tour for the past year, and they're just playing with everyone. And it's embarrassing. And I know one band in particular, we tried to give them incredible NME-style gigs, and they won't do them. They say we're too busy touring with Bon Jovi or something ridiculous like that. And that's where I worry, because basically they're looking at something like the Manics, and they're seeing this band who are selling millions of records, not realising they took that band 4 albums to get to that stage, and the press hated them at first, and they're just taking these sort of punky sound-alikes and thinking we can do 5 years' work within 1 album. Now that's scary.
The Manics' influence will perhaps be seen more in the future than what we've seen up to now. I think most of the bands that have already been successful were doing what they were doing before the Manics achieved their amazing success in the last couple of years. I'd like to think they could inspire a whole new generation, but I think we'll have to wait and see on that.
That's the only good thing, that people look at us from Wales, they do say, well, if they can do it, anyone can do it, don't think people particularly admire us that much, but they admire us for being big.
This is Radio 1, made in